Hey guys, Mark with Think Insurance. I want to answer some of the questions that a lot of you have had. The most important pieces that an insurance agent is going to ask you question-wise. Why are they asking certain questions? And what's the strategic thought? Is it a way for them to convince me, charge me more? All of these things that you need to know, the ins and outs or the secrets of getting an insurance policy. And honestly, this came from Clear Light Love. I appreciate the comment. It's one of the videos I wanted to make. I've made one similar to this in the past. Let's just dive in. The questions that you're asking is, what are the questions are we asking, and how do they affect, like how long we own the car, or where do we live? How does that play a factor in what the cost, or why are you asking those questions? So the first piece is, a lot of this stuff is stuff that the companies are asking us to ask. And the reason they ask this is because they do what's called a profile. And that profile is a lot of things piled on top of each other. What matters the most, which is what we talked about in previous video, the car you drive, there's a symbol on that car. That means the crash test rating, the safety rating, how often for that company or this company is that car in an accident, how often is it stolen. So when you see those cars, why is my 95 Honda way more expensive than my 2018 Toyota? Because the average theft of that car was way higher. Why is my Kia more? It's because the theft of those cars are way higher. All of those pieces play a huge factor in determining what the price is. And these companies are taking that into consideration. Your insurance score, which is really credit based, your personal location where you live, and the driving areas that you're going to. So what's the risk around you? All of these pieces play a factor. And when that agent is asking those questions, we start off with, what's your name? Clearly, we got to know who you are. Do we have to? No, but the reason that it's so important is because these companies have a shared database. They don't share with each other, so we can pull from it. It doesn't upload to it. When you're giving that information, you're not actually giving it so that your carrier says, oh my gosh, they're shopping, raise their rate. Forget these guys. All those things aren't going to happen. What's happening is it looks up your name and your address and it matches that and it pulls all the data for me. Half the time I know the VIN of your car, half the time I know your birthday already, half the time I know the other 3 drivers that are in your house. This person was excluded, all of those things. And sometimes they can pull the coverage that you have. So I can even give you better recommendations. Say, hey, you have too much or too little coverage here that I can notice. We should probably make some adjustments here. That allows an agent that knows what they're doing to actually go in and evaluate that. Okay, do they need my social? Honestly, no. There's almost no companies that use your social anymore. So giving your social security number doesn't really matter. There are some of the older style companies that base their rate on some sort of a credit, and giving your social technically could work, but I'll be honest, most states outlawed it. So in most states, you're not going to see that even be an option, but they don't need it. If they're asking for it, then just tell them they can bypass it. So how are we gauging these questions? There's 2 things that we're looking for. In my agency, we're looking for 3 things, but in general, we're looking for, do you get it? Do you want it? And do you need it? So in our personal agency, we want to make sure, do you get it? Do you understand the policy? Do you understand what you're purchasing? We want to educate you and make sure you understand. Do you want it? Which is, are you actually caring about this? If you don't care, then great. Just let the agent know, I'm just looking for this, that, or the other, and they can get you a quote quickly. But I'll be honest with you, most agents want to build some sort of rapport with you, and they want to build some sort of relationship, which I get can be frustrating on your end because you just want to text, you just want to email, give me the price. And we know as an agency that if we don't work with you and actually have a 10-minute conversation, maybe a 20-minute conversation, and we're having a good talk about your cat a little bit, we're talking about the cars that you're insuring, what the risks are, the coverages that you want to carry, how can we fit that all into one good price? All of those things, we know that you're not going to stay around. Because if it's just a transaction, then you go to any agency. It's always going to be cheaper. Every year, you're going to save $50 somewhere. And agents don't want that. They're looking for the long-term revenue. If that was the case, to be honest with you, we'd go sell life insurance. There's way more money in the upfront sale of a life insurance policy versus our 8 to 10 to 12% commission that we make on a policy. There's not a ton of money. It's the longevity of keeping that customer is where we actually make the most benefit. That's why they want to have a conversation with you and create some sort of a relationship to where you can build trust over time, because the time that you need them is when you have a claim. And that's where it matters the most. Don't think of insurance as an investment. It's not a return on money. You're not going to get money back. You win when you don't have claims because you have that safety net that you successfully didn't have to use. When you're using that safety net, headaches are happening, the car's damaged, you're waiting 5 weeks for the repairs, the body shop didn't get the parts quick enough, the claim has $1,000 or $500 deductible, whatever you picked. All of those problems are happening in that world, and it's the agent's job to kind of walk you through or guide you through that part, and that's what they're setting up. They're trying to prepare. If that happens, you've already built a relationship where you can just text them and say, hey, Mark, I just had this. Hey, what do I do? Let me get on the phone, talk to your daughter, your cousin, your friend. Let me help you through this problem that you have so that we can continue the relationship. Why do they ask, do you rent or own? That's honestly more of a marketing thing. It doesn't matter price-wise. We technically have to put it in there, but it does affect the way that the agency looks as a carrier. So when you come to carriers and you're saying, I want to work with your company. I want the AAA in my office. I want Progressive in my office. Can we sell your product? They're going to ask how many customers are homeowners, how many customers are renters. Not that they're trying to do that. They're trying to see, does their product fit your type of customer? And if it doesn't, then they don't want to work with you. If it does, absolutely, they're going to come on board. And that's a way for some of these companies to understand, are we getting the right clients for the product that we have? Because sometimes they misprice things. And in a really high risk area, these companies have a really good price. And that's why having an independent agent matters. If you are shopping, I'll put a link in the description below where you can work with an independent agent who does this. They take you to those companies and they better understand which company for all of your scenarios, your coverage, your policy, your profiles we talked about, the things, is going to give you the best price for the same coverage that everybody else is going to offer. They're not going to shop it every year. The goal isn't to necessarily get you the best price forever. Again, I said you could hop from one company to the other, and you're probably better off doing that on your own because you're just going to fight with every agent there is who wants to keep you as a client. If you have those rates go up or down, that's where they get involved and you're saying, hey, $100 a month is too much. We need to switch. So they can go back to the drawing board and see if something's changed with the carrier that you're going through. We know that there's a ton of discounts involved, and the biggest piece is to get you the best price without costing you the coverage that you should be carrying. So we know that having 2 cars is going to get you a multi-car discount. We know if we add a renters, a lot of the times it's cheaper than just having your auto alone. So we're going to try to quote you a renters because, one, you should carry it anyways. We want you to understand, get it, want it, and need it. We want you to understand that you have those 3 things involved. And if that fits your scenario, absolutely, let's get you the best deal. They know if they add the home on a strategic end for an insurance company, if they have the home, your auto, and a personal umbrella policy, the odds of you leaving that carrier are very low. So they want to have the best pricing for the combo of everything mixed together. That's why your home and auto together, or your renters and auto, gives that 30, 40% discount right off the bat. Do we care about telematics? Not really. It's just a way to get you a better deal. If you're a good driver and you can prove it, there you go. It was something that insurance companies created that helped. And we love the fact that it's there because it's saved a ton of clients a ton of money, myself included, to where we can do a driving test and we can show that we're good drivers. Yeah, they track me for 90 days or whatever the term is, and I can prove and I get $300, $400, $500 off my policy. That makes a difference to a lot of people. But if I honestly can get you the price without that telematics, that's what I'm shooting for. I want to get you within the range you want to be in without having to force you to do that. That way I can give you as an option. By the way, you can save an extra few $100s if we do this. Why do they ask about people in the household? Well, people in the household are a risk. So there are different scenarios for different companies. And this is where it gets a little bit mucky. If you have other people there in the house that are underage and don't drive, depends on the state you're in. If you're in a state like Michigan, there's a medical coverage called personal injury protection. They are automatically covered on your car insurance if they're blood related, live in the house. In that case, you need a list that there's how many. We don't need the names usually and date of birth. We just need to know, are there 2, 3, 1 person, you got a 5-year-old. And that way it goes on the policy as there's additional people. Now you've seen several lawsuits in the news where these insurance companies are saying, no more. We're not allowing you just to put 0. If you said there were none and there are some and we get a claim, we can go after you. So there are some companies that are getting really, really tight about that. Be very careful with those scenarios. In other states, you either add or exclude, and that's the most common. If you have people in the house and you're like, I don't want my cousin on my policy, they'll never drive my car, da 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 da, right? I get it. It makes sense. And it's completely possible, but you have to list them as a possible person and then exclude them on the other end. That way you're not paying for them being on your policy, but they're not allowed to drive. So in those cases, you don't have to pay the extra cost if you exclude the driver on the other end. Why would I even have to do that? That's kind of a pain. Well, because there's two scenarios that insurances have had issues with is you have an emergency. You mowing the lawn, you cut your toe off, and you got to go to the hospital. You can't drive, you're in pain, all the things. Your cousin hops in the car, you get in a car accident. But they didn't know your cousin even existed. So now they're paying for a claim that wasn't a covered scenario that they have to pay because they're paying that. And yes, again, they can go after you for not telling the truth, all those things. But at the end of the day, it's not worth their time. So most of the time, a lot of insurances are going to pay that. But because of that problem, they've now switched it to where, okay, yes, if you're going to have them listed as a driver, which by the way, isn't always expensive, sometimes it's cheaper to have a second driver. Just understand that, put them on, see what it is with them as a driver, and then if it costs you too much, exclude them. But if they exclude them, then in that scenario, they're not covered. So you have to understand that you're giving up the high value or high risk situation or scenario to save the extra cost on the insurance. Do I have to be careful on what I tell an agent? That's the trick question. Yes and no. Yes, let me say it this way. No, because I don't know an agent out there, at least 90% of the agents honestly aren't trained correctly. There's no specific sales training / help training in most companies that are in a good light, in my opinion. They don't know what they don't know. And so there's a lot of things that the agent doesn't understand that they have to ask. And there's a lot of scenarios where they don't ask. So when you are oversharing, then yes, that's going to be too much. If the agent understands and still wants to write the business, they can ignore certain things and there's slaps on the wrist. To be honest with you, I don't like that type of agent running, but I get it. It's 70, 80% of the agents out there, they're doing it that way. It's your typical, just make the sale, get the commission and walk away. Those types of agents are a little bit of a negative to the industry and they're all over. So yes, you should be aware of how you're answering questions, but also don't lie. It's, to be honest with you, at the end of the day, if the agent has built some sort of relation or trust, they might want to get your business, but they honestly have to follow some guidelines and some direction so that they understand that when they're asking the question, they might be like, no, I didn't want that answer. But it's the right way to do it. If you get caught in those scenarios, which happens all the time. I had a family member that just found out they didn't have insurance because they forgot to pay the bill several months ago, and they got the letters, all the things, and they just said, oh, maybe later. Ran into someone else's car, that scenario happens. Now they're gonna be involved in a possible lawsuit. The company has to pay the car for the other person and then go after him for the difference. And that scenario isn't something you wanna be involved in. A common one that I almost never see, which is something that does happen in some states, it's very, very rare now, but it's who drives what car. And that's a very common question. Obviously, the teenager, if you give him a Ferrari, that's going to be ridiculously expensive. A Ferrari's going to be expensive either way. But if you give him a sports car, let's say you bought him the Dodge Charger, and that teenager on that car with some companies is way higher of a price because they're the titled driver to that vehicle. In other companies, it doesn't matter. I added a teenager to a policy just the other day, and I listed them the driver of the Lexus. Didn't change a penny. So in most cases, it's not going to change based on the driver per car. In some scenarios, in some companies, it can change. And that's, I would say, a 20% chance that that actually is taken into consideration. If that is the case, don't necessarily change the driver on that policy of who drives what car, because one, if it's caught differently, that's the fraud part that they're looking for. And two, you don't want to be with that company anyways. There are way more options out there that are better fits. So if they think that that's a risk that the insurance company doesn't want to carry, it's not worth going with that company in the first place. Do you have prior insurance? Matters the most in almost every state. There's other states like California, doesn't matter. If you haven't owned a vehicle with some companies, doesn't matter. So if you're just starting to drive again, there's not as much of a risk and they're okay with that. But if it's been 4 days and you canceled your insurance and now you're trying to buy it again, it's gonna cost you money in most scenarios. So having prior insurance matters. Now, you can't skip past this because they're going to need proof if it doesn't show that you're active. In those, remember I told you we can download that information from other shared company? That's part of it. They're downloading your prior insurance to show this person at this address, here's the cars they insured. And if you don't have proof of that, you can't get that additional discount. The date that you start the policy also matters. So if you've only had the policy for 3 months, it's not going to give you as much credit as if you've gone 6 months. And that is not going to give you as much credit as if you've gone 3 years. And that is not going to give you as much credit as if you went 5 years. So that's kind of the cutoff, is 5 years or more is where you're going to get the best deal switching from one company to another. So if you're close to ending a 3-year or a 5-year on a current policy, it's probably worth waiting a little bit more, a couple more months, and then setting the policy up to start after that has passed so that the agent can give you the best pricing. Purchasing the policy ahead of time. So if you're shopping, always shop at least 10 to 15 days ahead of time. That way, when the policy comes due, if you're going to make the switch, they give you an additional early shopping discount that gives you a better price. And that's pretty much it. That's what the agent is going to be talking to you about, whether you should be shopping. In their opinion, if they're like our agency, if you don't get it, you don't want it, you don't need it, we'll give you an option, but I'll be honest with you, we know you're not going to stay for more than 6 months. Maybe a year. If we're lucky, you'll be with us for 3 years, or we can build that relationship over time when the policy renews and we talk it over and try to help you out. As an agent, most agents just want to make sure that they're not the same as every other agent out there, because that wouldn't stop you from being over at billybobsinsurance.com versus yourinsurance.com. Makes a difference. Let me know what your thoughts are. Is there something I missed? If you're an agent, let me know why you asked some of the questions and how your response or reasoning for those questions are. If you're a customer, let me know some of the questions that I missed that you feel like they're asking to be tricky or strategic, and I'll answer why or if that is that truth. In the meantime, you can understand the policies yourself, because I've got my Car Insurance 101 that's going to go very into detail on those coverages. So understand what you carry first, and then if you're trying to save some extra money before you talk to the agent, I've got my discounts video here that'll go in depth. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.